Hello, hello. How are you? I'm interested also in having us each ask that question of ourselves. How am I? And to really check in with the answer. Might be a nice thing to do even later today, somewhere quiet, under a tree or what have you, somewhere where you won't be disturbed, and to just really ask that question. I think we're really good at inquiring with other people and caring very much about what's going on with them, and even being very generous with our affection, our concern, maybe even actual help and assistance. And that often we are most sort of stingy with ourselves. Somehow we feel like that's stoic or admirable. So I'm encouraging us each to just ask that question so that we can hear the answer. How am I? And the follow-up question that I'm excited about is, what, if anything, would make me feel more fulfilled? Would make me feel like my desires and my basic needs are really fulfilled? And it's an interesting question to ask. I think sometimes we're afraid of the answer. Oh, I'm happy, I'm fine, but there might be a little voice in there. So I'm just offering this as a point of inquiry this week, and inviting you to check in now, but also sometime on your own when you have a little more just long, quiet space. Maybe even a little meditation after our flow practice today. We're doing some fun stuff with some tractioning and things to wake up some of our kind of sleepy muscles, to move some of the fascia, for example, that might be kind of sticky or immobile. And this can make all the difference in our comfort and ease in our body, and the grace with which we move throughout space. So excited to have you here. Please make it work for you. If there's parts that don't, you want to change it up, always, always, please go your own way. We're going to start off on our back bodies. I'm going to ask you to join me in some sighing breaths, and you can keep yours going as long as you want to, of course. And especially if you have noticed when you ask, how am I? You're like, oh my God, I'm stressed, or things have been crazy. Use these sighing breaths to really affirm, I am well, I am whole, I am safe. Big inhale. Exhaling through the mouth. Keep that going. Big inhales through the nose. Get your belly to expand. Notice where the breath fills you, and exhaling in your own time, releasing through the mouth. Keep it going. So with each inhale, inviting you to notice where you're feeling the breath. I hope you can register it here in the intercostals along the rib cage, up into the chest, and even into the back body that is against the earth. Let's do a few more. I am well, I am whole, I am safe. This is your yoga. There's nothing you need to accomplish here. You've already done it. You got to the mat. So proud of you. It's really one of the biggest gifts we can give our loved ones around us and the larger community, is to make our own inner world peaceful and stable and strong and resilient. And again, you're welcome to keep sighing as long as it's feeling still really useful. When you're complete, turn your attention inward to just a slow, steady breath through the nose, in and out, and see if you can find the gap or pause. And this stabilizing time is really important. It lets our body settle in to a really healthy rhythm, so that when we move into some flow, we're doing it again with each breath, and in each moment there's nowhere to get to, no rush. So we need to move any of that doer energy, striver energy out of our body. So I'm going to have you come into compression breath, and we'll add rock pose. So on your next exhale, as you're ready,
Draw your abdominal wall towards your spine. Anchor that low back into the floor. Emptying, emptying, emptying. You might roll the head side to side to make sure you're not working with your neck muscles. On the inhale, soften, allow. Is there more? And continuing on your exhale, compression. And if you'd like, engage the body in rock pose. So I'm making the hands into fists, arms into the sides, big squeeze of butt cheeks and thighs. Is there more? And then inhaling, softening, allowing. Exhaling, compression, rock pose. You might add a sit-up motion. You can do that with the legs still on the floor or the heels reaching for the wall in front of you. Inhaling, release. You might reach overhead along the floor and add some nice organic stretching during that inhale, rolling wrists and ankles. Exhaling, compression with or without rock pose. Is there more? Softness in the tongue, just the tip of it connected. Last time. And release. Good. Go ahead and bring those knees into the belly. And a nice little spinal rocking side to side. So it's a great check-in. Where's your spine at? How much tension in the hips? And then we're going to come into reclined pigeon. So plant the left foot, crossing the right ankle. Feet are flexed. Hug the whole deal towards the chest. Tight hugging of that right knee. So if you can actually get contact to the chest, go for it. And then rotating a little left. And this is hopefully where you find treasure. Some exciting moment of sensation. And it should feel good, like a good massage. Like you're like, oh yeah, get in there. And breathing into it. When you are complete, returning to your center and then other side. So stay as long as you need to with any of these poses. You might have one side that really needs more or less than the other. So now hugging the left knee into the belly, that left ankle's crossed onto right thigh. Reminder, if this is too much, you always just leave the floor foot anchored. And rotating a little right. Is this side different? We hope to create a little more mobility in these hips. We're going to use some fun muscles, like I said, to wake some stuff up. And come on back to center. Let's plant both feet and come on up into bridge. So I'm anchoring my upper arms deeply. I'm just kind of splaying my hands towards the ceiling. Some of you might enjoy adding yoga mudra. If you notice that brings some extra neck tension, then return here. And I want to make sure that the weight is perfectly, powerfully down into the whole footbed. And if I notice that my weight is kind of going to the outside of the foot or the knees are splaying out, I am not using my inner thigh and pelvic floor the way I want. So check that out. One more big inhale. Pressing the hips up, sending the knees away, the heart towards your chin. And slowly down, as slow as you can. Really use that back body, posterior chain, working hard. Good, knees to belly. So I'm going to take it out now into a straddle. So I'm taking those feet flexed, legs as wide as I can in a V. And I've kind of got my hands there on the outside of the leg. It's just a little encouragement and support. You could also use a strap if you're needing more help there, if your legs are kind of too far to reach. Good, and see if you can kind of bend the knees and straighten them. So I'm doing kind of a pulsing. This is just nice to really wake up stuff here. You know, a lot of us are getting so sort of imbalanced between our quadricep, the front thigh, and the hamstring that people find it hard to fully straighten the leg. So if you're not sure, talk to these quadriceps, these front thigh muscles, and go hi-ya, and kick those legs straight. And when you're complete, release, bring those heels in, butterfly. You could also do a relaxed butterfly with the feet on the floor. But I'm going to do a little windshield wiper, as I call it, where I'm trying to bring one foot towards the head and then the other. Some of you may enjoy a sit-up motion like so as you're doing that. But again, if this is adding a bunch of neck tension, please leave it out. Go back to a place where you can just enjoy what's happening in the hips. All right, we're gonna come into bridge one more time to add our leg extensions. This is one of my favorite poses. I do it almost daily. Strongly recommended by physical therapists for just keeping us strong and balanced. So come on up with those hips. Make sure your feet are not more than like 4, 5, 6 maximum inches apart. And if you're not sure what's going on today, just start lifting one foot lightly off the floor at a time and notice what's happening in the hips. And if that's feeling good, then go ahead and straighten through one leg. Trying not to use your neck and shoulders to kind of prop or counterbalance. Check out the other leg. I usually, hold for a full breath on each side, giving myself a chance to notice if my hip is dropped and to re-engage. And it takes that standing leg, glute and ham, the power to bring this hip back into neutral. Breathing, softness in your eyes, maybe even a light smile on your tongue, because you're awesome, your body's awesome, and you chose this time on the mat, and there's nothing to accomplish. We're just gonna play. All right, we're gonna come on up into standing. If you like spinal rocking, if that's fun for you, great. Have fun finding out how much it takes to get onto your feet. And then everyone join me please in forward fold ragdoll. So I've got my knees bent. I'm not trying to straighten them. I'm letting a lovely, I hope, stretch coming into the hamstring there. And as I move my body side to side, I invite a stretch even a little more kind of out into the IT band. So there's some really wonderful stretching that happens when we go laterally. And so I'm just letting my hips go side to side a few inches. Letting the head go with gravity if you can, continuing to breathe. And on your next inhale coming up, please drop the butt, stack the spine. Inhaling up, reach, reach, reach. Exhaling, prayer hands. Coming into Tadasana. So this is our mountain stance. I've got my hands kind of rotated open in a little jet airplane, because that's really great for helping me kind of anchor my triceps in towards the rib cage and get a sense of real alertness in there. I also want the shoulder head sliding down, and I should feel some good effort already happening in the core. Again, nothing striving, but I feel stable, I feel present, and I can let my core move me through my postures today. All right, inhaling, root and rise. Send the glutes forward. If you'd like to add a heart lift, do. You can always keep the head neutral. Exhaling, ragdoll. Taking the hands halfway up the shins. Inhaling, extend the spine halfway. Exhaling, step back with the right leg only. And we're going to just do a dip of the right knee and straighten. And dip and straighten. And if this is too much, remember you could be hanging onto a countertop. You don't have to have hands on the floor. You could be using blocks. You could use a chair. So your job is to play with that, navigate that. The next time that knee is coming down, if you can, settle onto it. Let that back foot relax. The hips are forward, and I'm going to reach the arms up. And I want you to, again, check in that the neck is easeful. I'm keeping my chin almost sort of dropped to look straight forward. And I'm going to take one more big belly breath, pushing it down into the pelvis. Exhaling, release the hands, come onto the foot, and return to your ragdoll. Nice compression exhale. Inhale, root and rise. Big glute squeeze. And exhaling, prayer hands. Remember, you can always add organic movements. Maybe your neck is like, oh yeah, I'm ready to release a little. Inhale, root and rise. Is there more? Exhaling, ragdoll, fold, compress, empty, 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 empty. Inhaling, extend halfway up. Is there more? Get that last sip up into your chest. Exhaling, step back, left leg only. Make sure that front knee is directly above the heel. If it isn't, you're going to have to scoot your other foot further back and start your pulsing. Drop the knee and straighten. So some of us, you know, if you're pretty darn flexible, you might not feel a whole lot, but most of us are pretty tight through these hip flexor quads, and just dropping that knee down, I can feel a stretch through that front of the pelvis and thigh. Breathing, and as you're ready, settle that knee if you can. Come on up. You could also just do hands on the knee, but the benefit of reaching the hands up as you're sending the hips and heart forward is that deepened stretch, especially into the low abdomen. Deep abdominal breath. Push that breath into the belly and return to your ragdoll. Inhaling, root and rise. Exhaling, prayer hands. And I'd like you to pause here and notice the sensation of hand to hand. And if you would, give it some pressure. So actually push a little bit. And my hope is that you can kind of feel a lighting up of the lat muscles and intercostals here. If your shoulders are forward, it's not going to be what we're looking for. You want those shoulder heads anchored down, then pressing. Good. Check that the neck can stay soft. And now please look forward and check that your feet are parallel, and then sliding the butt down like you're coming into a chair. It doesn't have to be a deep chair. It could be here. Some of you might come to here. But what I'm going to ask you to do is kind of a tractioning. So I'm asking you to pretend that you're trying to stretch your yoga mat with your feet. And I don't want anything to change. I don't want your knees to come in or out or anything. I want everything to look the same. But you should feel in that engagement a lighting up of the butt into the legs, just depending on your body and where you're tightest or weakest and so on. Good. See if you can do this for one more breath. Tractioning, tractioning, and then push up, straighten the legs, and push the hands down like you're pushing something away from you. Hands are flexed. Good. My hope is you're feeling a nice lighting up of those triceps. Awesome. We're going to come into some warrior flow from here, standing crane. So as you're ready, inhaling, lifting that left knee. Pause. Notice the balance challenge. Really powerfully root through the inner line of that right foot. If you'd like to briefly straighten that left leg in front of you, it might be down low, but you're pushing through the heel and you're getting that leg completely straight and stepping back into your crescent lunge. And you might want to do more jet airplane arms. That might have felt really good to wake up that upper arm that way, and you're kind of creating a shoulder blade sandwich. If you'd like, otherwise you might come up in a V. Some of you might enjoy steeple hands. I find that while I'm physically able to do it, it just creates a ton of tension in my shoulders and neck, so I'm like, nah, not my pose. These other ones feel great. Good. See if you can deepen your lunge. Press back through that back heel and thigh. Good. And now I'm going to offer you a little add-on here before we come into Warrior 2. So I'm going to invite you to, if you've never done anything like this before, just bringing the hands onto the hips as I invite you to reach forward through your head. You're kind of hinging at the hip. And I'll give you an option to add on a little bit. So if this feels like too much, if you're having to kind of sit onto the thigh with your body, then come back up and do a lesser pose, all right? Otherwise, you're working straight forward with the head. Add those jet airplane arms. Good. Now reach forward through the left arm. Keep reaching back through the right, and option to rotate your torso a little bit. And I'm staying looking at my floor foot because that really helps my balance and keeps my neck from getting upset with me. And as you're ready, inhale, come up, plant that back foot, and settle into Virabhadrasana 2. So again, your job in each pose is to find the level that allows you to feel some intensity, but you're never contracting or striving or surviving. Sliding into your Warrior 2. Please check that that back leg truly is straight. If you're not sure, push with your own hand, or you can use your hand on your hamstrings. Press into it. Good. One more big breath. And then option to straighten that front leg or keep it bent. I'm going to keep it bent, and I'm going to bring my left hand around in a partial bind. So I'm rotating so the back of my hand lands on my low back. Some of you might even be able to grab your fingers and kind of pull it forward or connect with that right thigh. But right here, I'm gonna come up into a beautiful sweep up with the arm, but reaching forward through the ribs. And I'm thinking about that line of energy from that back foot all the way through the ribs. It's like I'm one big arc. One more long inhale. Feel that arc. Exhaling, elbow to thigh and left elbow, or left arm rather, sweeps forward. Shoulder heads anchor down. You might go deeper, right hand coming towards the floor to a block. And if that just puts you into kind of surviving it and less sort of then go back to the One more long inhale. And we're going to release out to downward facing dog. Exhaling. Remember, you can always just return to standing and do a standing hip pump instead of this spinal pumping that we do in dog series. Here in downward facing dog, one big breath. Inhale, exhale, sigh. Sending the hips towards the heavens and the wall behind you. Bend the knees a little to create more freedom in the shoulders. Inhaling to your version of plank. Now make sure that the hands really are below the shoulders. Drop the knees for your first plank. Exhaling, chaturanga. Now remember, you're bending the elbows, but it doesn't have to be deep. It might be just right there. And then to the floor for cobra. Anchor the pelvis. Draw the heart forward. Big inhale. Exhale, downward facing dog. No wings, no shrugs. And we might just lunge it forward to the front of the mat. You might hop. You can also walk the hands back to the feet and then come to the front of the mat. Inhale, root and rise. Exhaling, prayer hands. Pause, find slow, steady breath, seeking the gap. Standing crane, right knee lifts. Yoga toes, I've got my toes peeling open here. Creating again that back pressure, hand to hand. A little bit of shoulder blades down. And then see if you can straighten both legs. Pushing, 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 thighs straight. And stepping slowly back to your crescent lunge. Remember to steer right hip bone forward, left hip bone back. You should feel like your thighs are kind of scissoring. And then your option, of course, of arms. We're just really interested in what feels powerful and peaceful. That's the energy of our warrior series. Not duking it out or preparing for battle. Okay, so we're going to power back through that back leg and heel. Hinge forward at the hip to whatever point feels good. And then option to just use jet airplane arms, or to reach forward through the right arm, back through the left, and letting that rib cage rotate a little left. As that's happening, I'm making sure that left hip is coming back, right hip bone forward. Reaching from hand to hand. One more full breath. Power and peace. Inhaling, come on up and plant that back foot, Virabhadrasana 2. So always adjusting the feet as you need to, but making sure that front foot stays straight ahead, the knee tracking. Remember, you can add sighing breaths whenever. It's a wonderful way to release if you notice that you were kind of holding or there's something a little kind of pent up. Again, I'm going to stay forward in my lunge as I bring that right hand around in a partial bind. And again, some folks can actually connect in with that left thigh. I can, and again, I find it just creates a bunch of wrist tension, so I don't do it. And then I'm going to send those hips forward and ribs forward before I reach up through that left arm. Breathe. Let the breath affect the posture. That's yoga. I like to think of breath as our change agent. And as you're ready, unwind and come into your lateral stretch. Elbow to thigh, right arm reaching for the wall in front of you. Head and vision are wherever it's most easeful for the neck. Shoulder heads are anchored, ribs driving towards the sky. Yeah, so you're really supported. You don't even need that elbow really. Shoulders stacked. One more big inhale from the power of that back leg through the middle finger. And exhaling, rotate out. Follow the back foot in downward dog. Inhale, exhale, sigh. Consider bending those knees. Option for dog series, or of course resting or cow-cat. Inhaling to your plank. Pause. Power those heels back and thigh bones to the sky. If your knees are bent here, you're missing your engine. Make sure to send your hips up a little bit before sending your chest down into chaturanga. Either settling the hips on the floor for cobra or off the floor for upward facing dog. Exhaling, downward facing dog. Inhale, exhale, sigh. We're going to slowly walk the hands back to the feet. And I mean slowly, so pause and push. Take the next hand a few inches back and push. So with each movement, you're elongating best you can through the shoulder joint and the chest and enjoying the hamstring stretch. Oh yeah. Inhale, exhale. Give in to the sensation. Welcome it. Welcoming, waking up your whole body. On an inhale, root and rise. Exhaling, prayer hands. I'm going to invite you to come into chair pose with me again with that little bit of tractioning. So I'm just going to slide those hips on down, a little pressure palm to palm. Check that my feet and knees are parallel. And then I'm going to add that pressure. And we're going to go up and down. So I'm going to engage. And if you want to kind of add some fun arm movements, you can. Otherwise, you can just keep them in prayer. And I'm going to come on up. And I'm going to engage and slide down. Engage and slide up. Good. We're just moving the body in this range of motion while engaging again. Hand to hand, keeping a little pressure. Keeping that tractioning, pushing as if stretching your yoga mat. Let's do one more. Soft tongue. And release. All right, so I'm offering kind of a fun, I think it's fun, balancing pose here. It's a stretch also that's basically like pigeon, but sometimes the balance part of it makes it impossible to enjoy the stretch. So if that's the case for you, you might want to go over to a chair, a countertop, a stair railing, whatever, a wall, and just steady yourself. We're going to take that right knee up, and again, I really want to be in the power of this left thigh. I should know exactly where I am. I could hop or whatever. And I'm going to see if I can reach down for the foot. And I've got my foot flexed, so that's helping stabilize this knee. I'm going to see if I can bring it across. So it's just like pigeon. You can see that. And then I'm inviting kind of a chair pose so that this left thigh becomes a little bit of a ledge. I have to play often so that like my ankle bone isn't pressing into my thigh muscle and stuff. So, make your own adjustments. And I like to keep a hold of both the foot and the knee. That's what works for me as I now begin to hinge the heart forward. And so it's strange. It's a combination of asking these muscles to work, also releasing. Breathing. See if you've got one more. Big inhale. And release. Good. So sometimes when I do that pose, I'm wobbling and my foot's coming down to the ground and I have to bring it back up. But that's part of the play. But just know that that's very normal. All right. I've been doing this one a few times this week, so it's gotten a little easier. Bring that left knee in. Reaching for that foot. Once I've got a hold, by the way, I want to re-anchor my shoulders. I want to make sure I'm not all hunched into this. Good. And then whoop, slowly bending that standing leg to create your ledge. Soft tongue. Steady drishti gaze. Begin to hinge. Again, these are all things you're adding on if they feel appropriate in your body today. One more breath. And release. Good. Go sideways on your mat, please, and begin going side to side. And you're really pushing, just like if you were doing a, rollerblading or kind of skate style skiing. So to notice that we're pushing, we can look and see, is this foot rotating off the floor a little bit at the blade? Or are my knees kind of just staying bent and I'm kind of flopping back and forth? Don't. Push. Power on. Feel it. Push. And then as you're ready, you might take your hands towards the floor, or if you're flexible enough to have them both on the floor, that for me is the best stretch. And wherever you are, hands on floor or on the thigh or what have you, can again be on the edge of a couch, pause to one side for about 3 breaths. Notice the possibility of body releasing tension. The breath is so profound. Go to the other side. Again, I want this leg completely straight so that I'm getting that very specific stretch into the inner leg while I'm pushing. Yoga is unusual because it tends to stretch us while we're activating muscles. It really provides better evolution in things that are tight and stuck. Deep breath. And slowly on back. I'm going to bring my feet in a little bit just to give my ankles a little break. You don't have to, but you don't want to be in a super wide straddle. I'm going to bend the knees and invitation for Yoga Mudra. So I want to first rotate my shoulder heads down the back. So my neck is nice and long. And then you might grab a sock or a strap or something if you need to hold like so to give yourself more room. Otherwise, you're intertwining the fingers, palms facing each other, pressing the fist towards the sky. And what we're wanting to do again is get that click in of the tricep, that the elbow goes click and it's straight. And then I'm going to pulse slowly, carefully, bringing the hands towards the hips and then up and away. And there's a wonderful movement around the shoulder blade. When you're complete, you can even use your hands to support and come up a little. I know my thighs are feeling a little fatigued. Go ahead and rotate ankles, rotate wrists. We tend to forget too how connected everything is. So if I, am releasing some stuff down in here, it might offer wonderful release also into the neck. So let's check. Go ahead and give your neck that wonderful little collar. I'm not interlacing the fingers. They're just sort of connecting back there to make a collar. And you're going to just move your head around on that collar. So it's like you've got a rim of a bowl that the base of the skull is kind of moving on. And sometimes it feels good to add a little pressure. So at some point when your head is to the left, for example, you could use the blade of that right hand to kind of press up under the base of the skull, and the same thing on the left. And you can also rotate the chin a little forward and a little back in that position and sometimes get some nice releases. So please play with that for a few moments. Breathing, noticing what you are creating. That area at the base of the skull, I refer to those as the I've gotta muscles. I gotta do this, I gotta do that. And so it's really interesting to notice, what is the texture there? You might even take your hands and just kind of, massage around right up under even into kind of under the jawbone, and then where it connects and so on. And releasing tension there is quite magical to me. It always, again, tells my system like, hey, I'm relaxed, life is great, no big deal. You might also add a jaw opening, like so. Nice. All right, we're going to come into one last flow here. Again, you're always welcome to add on or work more in as you see fit. But we're going to do, again, some nice stuff that works these legs. And each time you want to just check in, those legs really are activating and straightening when you're intending to. All right. So we're going to come into standing crane. So find your mountain. Bend those knees a little. Nice active pushing of the earth away. Inhale and bring that left knee up. Good. Notice what's happening in the right leg. We want a lot of glute and thigh activity stabilizing us. As you step back, I want you to actually see essentially if you can create jet airplane. So I'm going to hinge forward at my right hip, or at the hips, and I'm going to try and press straight back through my left heel. I'm going to drop my vision so that I'm pressing through the crown of the head, elongating the back of the neck. And then I'm going to add my jet airplane arms, shoulder heads anchoring down. So I want to make sure, of course, that my core is supporting. And then hopefully I might feel that I could even hinge a little more, finding as close to parallel with the floor as possible. And as you're ready, slowly drop that foot into warrior one. So if my front foot is noon, that back foot is at about 11 essentially. All right, we're gonna want to make sure that there's plenty of left to right space with the feet. I'm going to slowly come forward now, like I had you do in the last round, except this time I'm going to see if I can let my body kind of hang inside of that right leg. You might be able to place the hands on the floor. If not, you could have them on the shin. Do not press on the knee joint itself. You could be on the thigh and up here. But ideally, we're finding something deep enough to let the head hang down. Good. I still want to steer right hip bone back, left hip bone forward. This requires a lot of good power from that back leg. I'm getting a big stretch in this right leg, the front one. An invitation here to add your yoga mudra. If that pose doesn't work for you, you might instead just see if you can wrap your hands around behind like so. You could also come here to the pelvis. I'm going to see if I can add my yoga mudra arms. Beautiful. Power in a lot of different directions here. So squeeze with your feet to your legs like you're trying to stretch your yoga mat, and you'll be amazed by the power and stability that the pose takes on. See if you can release your index fingers to point to the heavens. Use the power of those index fingers to press back as you come up. Tractioning, tractioning, tractioning. Whew, release and prayer hands. Nice long inhale. Exhaling, we're going to come forward onto that right foot, launching the left leg. So when you're ready, slowly taking the weight into that right leg, launch that back foot, and one more time, just see if you can fold. Now this is really hard to do if you're not touching the floor because the balance becomes so difficult. So have fun playing, and you might be falling down, that's all right. We're going to return to the floor with that left foot and come into our exalted warrior. So I'm going to plant that back foot back down into that warrior one kind of angle. And then I'm going to reach up through that right arm, up and back. Now maybe you want to straighten that front leg. You can have it bent, whatever is feeling right to you. One more long inhale. Exhale, cartwheel it out, downward facing dog. Plant the hands and step back. Opportunity for dog series here. Again, you could also do holding in dog, move to child's. I have not given you a lot of resting poses. I'm asking you to find power and peace as we go. Exhaling chaturanga. Inhaling cobra or upward dog. Upward dog, the thighs must be straightening and activating. Exhaling downward facing dog. And if you want to start at the front of the mat again with me, bend the knees, look forward, and you can either lunge or on your exhale, a nice core engagement for a hop. Inhaling, root and rise. Exhaling, prayer hands. All right, notice what's happening in the body. Again, if you're taking on tension in the neck, give it some love, do what you gotta do. All right, last side. You can do this. My legs are a little shaky. I hope yours are too. So it makes the balance part harder, and that's fun. Try not to use your tongue or your eyebrows or your neck, and you're doing good work. All right, I'm going to give it that athletic push and lift that right knee, standing crane. Pause. Again, make sure that you're squeezing. Essentially, I want to imagine there's still like a block or something between my thighs that I'm squeezing this thigh into, and you should just feel kind of a lighting up of all those supporting muscles around the glute and thigh. I'm going to slowly hinge at the left hip, shooting that right heel straight back, and I want to make sure I get that leg straight. Hi-ya. Good. I've got my hands at my heart currently. I'm checking in with my neck, elongating through the crown, sending those arms back in jet airplane, and I'm just going to see if I can hinge a little more deeply, rooting, reaching. And slowly plant that foot down into that warrior one. So again, if front foot is noon, that right foot is now pointing at 1 o'clock. And I want to make sure I've got enough left to right space. So I'm going to kind of move that right foot to the right because I almost had it like on a balance beam and I want the heels more in like train tracks. All right, you can always deepen your stance if you want to, but right hip bone back, left hip bone forward, and I'm going to come on forward and fold. So I'm trying to get my body inside of that left leg, steering the right hip bone forward. You don't want that left butt making its way out to the left edge of the mat. So for many of us, this will be plenty. This is a really interesting and challenging pose to maintain breath and the power in that back leg and to say hello to the stretch in that front leg. I think this is called humble warrior, if I remember correctly, and especially when you add the yoga mudra arms, then there is a humility, you know, there's like power in it that you're able to do this, but this tuning inward kind of humbleness versus exaltation. And so listening towards your own good heart, engage those legs as if you're trying to stretch the mat, and see if you're able to intertwine yoga mudra or hands on the back, or just enjoy keeping them on the floor. Breathe. You could also do this with the leg a little bit straight at the front if that feels good. So it's just up to you playing. Use those fingers now to drive towards the wall behind you. Traction the mat. You should feel like a sticky tree frog. And release. Hands in prayer, right at the heart, thumbs connecting. Good. Check in with your own good heart. I hope it's beating well, and you might even be able to feel it with your thumbs. All right, we're going to be launching onto that left leg. So again, I want to make sure that I am steering right hip bone forward, left hip bone back, coming onto the ball of the back foot, folding through the hips and allowing myself to move as close essentially to forward fold with the torso as I can. That back foot is driving towards the wall behind. And when you're ready, you're going to return that foot to that warrior one so the foot is flat. If that doesn't work, remember, you can always use crescent lunge. Traction those feet, stretch your yoga mat so that as you come up, it's not effort in your back at all. It's down in those amazing legs of yours. One more long inhale. And actually, I forgot where we went next after this. Sorry about that, guys. I don't do that often. Where did we go? I think we went into our exalted stretch. Reaching up through that left arm. And you could straighten the leg. Yeah, that's where we went. And breathing. Noticing. And as you're ready, rotate it out, downward facing dog. Last opportunity for dog series. If you want it, you could also be going, I said, into child's pose. And wherever you can be in breath, that's yoga. Inhaling plank. Make sure that all your weight is in your hands. You should be able to hop those feet. Exhale, chaturanga. Maybe you can touch the nose to the earth. Either upward dog or cobra. Is there more? Exhaling child's pose. Bring those knees wide, bring the feet together, and press back. If child's pose doesn't work for you, please go into ragdoll instead. And I'm going to bring us onto our butt for one last tractioning stretch. So this is kind of like reverse table or crab pose as we call it. So we're on our butt and we're going to be on our hands and feet like table, but with our front of our body towards the sky. And what we're doing is when we're pressing up our body, we want to make sure too that we're pressing the chest towards the sky, not just the hips, because that's going to help give us the stretch that we're going to activate by having the fingertips pointing towards the butt. But once we're up, we're going to imagine that we're trying to rotate those hands outward, but we don't let them. It's just like the tractioning with the feet. You don't actually move your hands or your feet, all right? And many of us, if you're tight from all the stuff you've been up to, you might feel some stretch all the way into kind of forearm, elbow, shoulder, and so on. This can be really nice for releasing, some of the tendonitis and other things that people build up. So when you're ready, shoulder heads anchor down the back. Neck is peaceful. I'm just looking straight ahead. Big inhale, exhale, press up, push the earth away. Make sure those arms are straight. And then imagine that you want to rotate those hands out. Good, and release. Inhaling, we'll do it 3 times. Exhaling, press up, arms straighten and traction, imagining that we want to rotate out. Last one, inhaling. Exhaling, press up. Imagine you're rotating out. Notice, notice, notice. And release. Good. And come to any comfortable seated position and just give those wrists and hands a nice rotation. It's really good to, after that kind of a stretch, to let your body have kind of full range of motion. So circle the arm, circle the wrists. Marvelous. And if you've got your block handy, I invite you into a delicious few moments of draping yourself over it. You could also use a very dense pillow or something, folded up towel. We want to just give our pelvis some height here. So I'm coming down to my back, planting my feet to raise the hips. I'm going to place the block under the sacral triangle. You do not want it in your low back where your vertebrae are. So it's really right at that bony triangle at the top of the crack of the butt. And for many of us, just softening here feels quite wonderful. It's kind of, the block is pressing the pelvis such that you get kind of a tractioning in the low back. Some of us will prefer to extend the legs and kind of deepen the stretch that's available in the front body in this pose. If it feels awkward, it might be that the block needs to go further down. You don't want your kind of pelvis tilting downward off the block. You want to feel a perfect suspension from the center. And as you relax, invite a true softening through for the hips so that your feet roll open. There's no effort here, no control. Deep, deep breath. So the more we breathe in active poses and also resting poses, again, the more stretch we get of our tissue, the more resilient we become, and the more that the message is sent to the body of being well, whole, and safe. So the choice to breathe deeply is really the most powerful part of our practice. And if we can take that into life off the yoga mat, all the better. All right, when you're ready, coming off your block and giving yourself a nice little counter shape. It might be knees to belly. And then please notice what for you feels like your best closing of the practice today. Maybe there's a particular stretch that you are hungry for. You can kind of feel your body going, oh yeah, we need that. Always listen to that. Maybe you're feeling really energized and you're like, oh hey, I want to go into half shoulder stand or crow pose. Take it. Use that chi, that prana life force, and let it blossom you into something inspiring. This kind of a flow can be really fun because it does tend to bring a lot of energy. We can all of a sudden feel that we have more available to us because we've gotten rid of a lot of stagnation and blockages and so on. I invite you also to kind of briefly glance through the practice in your mind's eye. Was there anything in particular that was feeling useful? Like, oh yeah, that's really waking something up, or ooh, that's really stretching something. Encouraging you to find that one or maybe 2 things and consider repeating it again over the next few days and to just see what's going on there. What I find is often once I wake something up, it's easier to kind of tap into it again. And the body is just incredibly fast at responding to what we ask of it. I'm so grateful that you've taken this time on your mat today to be with me, most importantly to be with yourself, your breath, your body, your being. And I invite you to return to that original question. What are your greatest needs and desires? And is there anything in particular that would help you feel really at peace, really fulfilled? So as you settle into your Shavasana, your resting, you might let that thought move through your head with no pressure to come up with a particular answer. But that asking of the question kind of energetically begins to open a door to our own selves, where the parts of us that maybe have been silenced have the encouragement to speak up, and bit by bit we maybe start to hear some of those things that just allow us to know, what do we want to say yes to each day? What do we want to say no to each day? So once again, closing your eyes, turning your attention inward, letting go of all breath control. So the breath simply settles into that slow and peaceful breath like a baby sleeping. Notice the rising and settling of breath and of your body. One of the great gifts of a very active yoga practice is that often it does help the body settle. And you might just scan your body and notice, does it feel deeply relaxed, ready to just plant itself here for quite a while? I hope so. And I hope you'll honor that. I'm going to close here and leave you be with Oms and the singing bowl. Let the vibration just move through your body, or join in if you'd like. Gathering a long inhale. Om Shanti Shanti. Om peace, peace. Peace in your heart, peace in your body and your being. Creating peace in the world around you with your choice to find deep breath in these moments off the yoga mat. Thank you so much for being here. Namaste. See you soon.